Let's talk about how to get more done in less time without burning out. This video is going to be different from what you'll get in most productivity channels, most of the hustle and grind videos that are out there, in the sense that I'm not just going to show you how to be more high performing. I'm not just going to show you how to be more productive. I'm going to help you do that without burning out, without the stress, without the overwhelm, because we've all been there. We've been in the position of trying to get more done, but feeling more tense, feeling a sense of urgency while trying to do that. I've been there myself, and because of that, I've learned as a clinical psychologist how to help ambitious professionals and ambitious leaders, people with big goals, big dreams, people who want to live a big life, to get there while preserving their well-being, without sacrificing who they are, without sacrificing their sense of happiness and fulfillment during that journey. In other words, I help people get to the end destination while enjoying the journey. And that is something that we've forgotten how to do as a society. So in this video, I'm going to try and correct a bit of that by teaching you how to get to your end point, how to hit your goals by getting more done in less time without sacrificing your mental health, without getting burnt out, without hitting that slump, losing your energy, losing your motivation, losing your morale, and so on. So here's what you're going to want to do. There are 3 phases to doing this. I'm going to describe all 3 phases. All 3 phases come from my online membership, where I have a bunch of professionals and leaders who take my online videos and courses and advice and all sorts of other resources that I've developed for them, and they put that to action in their own lives to meet their goals without sacrificing their well-being. So these 3 phases are what I take anyone through who I work with, whether it be on my online membership, through my online coaching, and so on. So here's the blueprint for you. Phase 1 is about alignment. You're basically going to align your motivation, your values, your core beliefs, your internal world. You're going to get that ready. You're going to incubate that to get it ready for action. So the first phase involves changing your motivation, changing your relationship to yourself, discovering who you are before we get going. Phase 2 is called architect. This is where you're going to change the context around you, change the environment, change your relationships so that everything around you is supportive of your goal of getting more done without burning out. And then finally, phase 3 is called act. This is where you actually put the gears into motion. This is where you take action. This is when you start to do the things that you know you should be doing. And by this point, because of the alignment in phase 1 and because of the architecture of phase 2, phase 3 is going to happen very smoothly. So let me take you through each of these phases. I'm going to give you an action step to do within each, and hopefully these 3 phases will get you off your feet so that you can be high performing, so that you can start to do your best work, and so that you can actually make the kind of impact that you want to make. So phase 1, called align. The most important thing here is to make sure that you're being powered by the right kind of motivation. Many people start to jump into their pursuits. They just jump right in to whatever they think they want without first inspecting. What is my motivation here? What is my intent? What do I want from this? How you're going to activate that is you're going to ask yourself a few questions. Here are some helpful questions. What do I enjoy doing when nobody is watching? Ask yourself that for a moment. What do I enjoy doing when nobody is watching? So nobody's seeing you. Nobody can applaud. Nobody's going to give you a medal for it. You're not getting paid for it. What do you want to do now? When you're on your own, no one's watching, something that you really, really enjoy, not for recognition, not for some sort of external reward. This question is designed to activate your intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is when you do something for the sake of the activity. For example, listening to music. We oftentimes listen to music not to get paid for listening to it. We don't listen to it for status or for money or for a reward or for acknowledgement. Most of the time when we're listening to music, we're doing it because we just want to listen to music. We listen to music to listen to music. We do it for the sake of the activity itself. This is what's called intrinsic motivation. And that question, if you answer it properly, will help you identify your intrinsic motivators, the things that you do just because you want to do them. This is very different from extrinsic motivation, which is when you're motivated by something external. You're motivated by some outcome that you'll get to because of the activity. For example, many people don't like their jobs, but they do it because they get paid for it. That's extrinsic motivation. In that situation, it's the money that motivates you. Some people want to be an actor or a musician because they want the fame, not necessarily because they really enjoy acting or because they really enjoy playing music. No, they want the fame, they want the status, they want the money, they want the applause, the recognition. All of those examples are extrinsic motivators. Now, the problem with extrinsic motivation is that it's fragile. When you're motivated by something extrinsic, something external, when you're motivated by an outcome, you're less likely to pursue the activity. And that's because pursuing the activity is dependent on what you get out of it. When you start to get paid less, you're less likely to do it. When you're not getting the applause, you're less likely to do it. When people aren't acknowledging the work you're doing, you're less likely to do it. So you see what's happened if you rely too much on extrinsic motivation is that you've set up the activity such that you'll only do it when those conditions are met. That means it's not such a reliable fuel source. It's not such a reliable motivator. And that means you're less likely to get a lot done in a short period of time. When you're intrinsically motivated, however, you're going to get a lot done because you enjoy the activity. You want to do this thing. So my advice here is, if you're trying to get more done in less time, first make sure that what you're doing is based on intrinsic motivation. Now, that means either choosing things that you enjoy or making the things that you do more enjoyable. The first is obviously the best because you want to dedicate your life to things that you enjoy. As the famous quote goes, if you do work that you enjoy, you'll never work a day in your life. Your work then becomes play. So that's the first option, is to choose things that you enjoy. But obviously, sometimes in life, we have to do things that we don't always enjoy. And maybe there are multiple aspects of your job, and you enjoy most of it, but there'll be one or two things that you don't enjoy. For those things, you need to make them more enjoyable. You need to make them more intrinsically motivating. For example, when I didn't enjoy the gym, I told myself, you know what, I'm going to listen to podcasts when I go to the gym. And through doing that, I actually started to enjoy being at the gym. In fact, I would be on the treadmill, on the bicycle machine, just listening to that podcast and actually doing extra minutes so that I can finish the podcast. This is an example of how you can make an activity more enjoyable, even if it isn't your instinct. So the point here in phase 1, in alignment, is to align your motivation with the task. In other words, to create more intrinsic motivation that comes from the inside out, that allows you to overflow. If you do this, you're less likely to burn out because you're actually enjoying what you're doing. Now, phase 2, for getting more done in less time without burning out, is to architect your environment to make things a lot easier to do and to make them more enjoyable. Now, the first thing that's important here in terms of your environment is your actual biology. Because your mind, your motivation, your thoughts, your emotions, they're situated within a biological being, meaning that your most immediate environment is not actually what's in your room. It is your body itself. It's your biology. So you want to get that biology functioning really well. You want to meet your biological needs so that it's very easy to get a lot more done in less time. Because let's face it, if your biological needs aren't met, you're not going to be able to focus, to pay attention, to concentrate. And you need to do this on many levels. Let's walk through a few of them. Here's some action steps. Number 1 is you have to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Most people don't get that, which is a pity because it means they'll never know what it's like to work at their best, to play at their best game. They'll never know what it's like to flow in terms of their work, to actually have the energy to want to do something. That is what prevents burnout. When you actually have the energy and you have the motivation because you are that well rested. Your eyes don't feel like they're closing. You don't have that afternoon slump and dip, but you actually have the energy. You have the motivation. You have the impetus to do what you need to do. So that's the first thing. 7 to 8 hours of sleep. That's non-negotiable. Not only does it affect your energy and motivation, it also affects your thinking, your cognitive functions. Things like planning, attention, concentration, motivation, all of that stuff is affected by sleep. So non-negotiable is sleep to get your context right, your biological context. Now the second thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're eating mainly low processed, less sugary foods. And you want to eat foods that are high in omega-3 fatty acids. And you want to make sure that you're eating the correct amount of these foods. Nutrition is where we get our energy from. And so if that's not right, you're not going to be able to do more in less time without burning out. If you don't have your nutrition right, you're going to have to rely on willpower to force yourself to do things because you don't have the natural vital energy that's flowing from inside out. That's not helpful. So nutrition is the second, but there are other things you can do. You can get more sunlight, you can take more walks, you can get your blood flowing through exercise. All of these things that protect your biology and your body and your brain will serve you in terms of doing your best work without burning out. Now that's just the biological context, but let's move outward into the world. You need to ask yourself, what does my workspace look like? Does my workspace inspire me? Does my workspace make it easy for me to engage with my work? Is there little to no clutter that can get in the way and distract me? All of these questions are important because as human beings, we are fickle. We get distracted. We sometimes find it difficult to work on a task if there's something else in front of us. Our environment will dictate the degree to which we get things done and the degree to which we have to force ourselves to get things done. You don't want to have to be in an environment where you have to force yourself, where there's so much noise outside that you constantly have to redirect your attention to the work that you're doing. You don't have to be in a situation where you're doing that. You can actually take away about half of the distractions just by changing your environment. Some distractions will come from your own mind. Maybe you'll remember things or you'll have emotions or thoughts that distract you. But you can deal with up to 50% of those distractions just by clearing up your environment. So make sure that your environment is working for you rather than against you, and that'll help you get more done in less time without burning out. Some examples of how to do this is put your phone on sleep mode. If you have a work laptop, only have the essential apps installed on that. Make your to-do list visibly available. Eliminate auditory distractions, things that you can hear. Maybe play some background music or put in earphones. These are all ways in which you can make your environment more conducive to being productive. Now let's talk about phase 3. Phase 3 is called ACT. This is where you're going to take action. So you've aligned your psychology with your intrinsic motivation. You've architected your environment to make the behaviors easy. Now it's time to actually do the work. Now when you do the work, what happens with a lot of people is that they behave from a place of stress and tension and urgency and overcompensation. It's almost like they're forcing themselves and trying to push themselves and twist themselves into action. That is the overall tone. A lot of the times in my therapy practice, I'll see people holding their breath as they speak about the need to be more productive. You don't want to be holding that urgency. You don't want to be holding that tension. You want to be working from a place of flow, not a place of force. A lot of people are trying to force the issue. I want you to flow. Good thing is, one of the world's leading experts in flow research, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, has worked on flow since the 1960s. He was researching creativity in the 1960s, and he studied different artists, painters. He eventually studied sports people like chess players and boxers, and he noticed something very interesting. What he noticed was that a lot of the people who are the most productive, who get the most done in the least amount of time and enjoy doing it, are the people who enter the state that he called flow. In this state, what happens to them is they get totally absorbed in the experience of the activity. They get so absorbed, in fact, that they lose their sense of time. They even lose their sense of self to some degree. And they get just absorbed in the activity. It's just them and whatever's in front of them, and every move feels right. They're flowing like water, and they have a sense of timelessness while doing this. And it feels easy, and it feels enjoyable. And he termed this flow because a lot of the participants said that when they're in this state, they feel like they're flowing. They feel like they're floating because everything is just happening organically as it should be, moment to moment. This is a state that not many of us work from, But the greatest, most successful artists and sports people and Olympians, these people have consistently activated flow states where they can get a lot done in very little time while not forcing themselves to do it. This is how you can get into a flow state. So we've already, through phase 2, got rid of all the distractions. So you want to make sure that you're in a distraction-free place and that you've set aside about 90 to 120 minutes to work on this activity. That aligns with the natural flow of the brain, the natural rhythm of the brain, 90 to 120 minutes. So what you're going to do once you're in that space is you're going to want to give your full focus to the activity in front of you. No checking your phone, no checking the time, no checking anything. You're going to set the timer and then you're going to absorb yourself in the task or the activity that you need to do. Once you're doing that, you're going to continue giving your full attention, and you're going to want to choose a task where the challenge is appropriate. You don't want to choose a task that is too easy because then you'll get bored. You don't want to choose a task that's too difficult because then you'll get anxious and overwhelmed. So the activity that you choose has to be something where it is challenging enough to stretch your abilities without breaking you. That is the key to getting into a flow state. Many people try to get into a flow state by doing things that are easy, but they find they get bored, they get tired of it, it becomes monotonous. If that's the case, the activity you're doing is too boring, you need to up the activity. You need to up the challenge. For example, a weightlifter, if they're picking up 5 kgs and it's too light, they'll go to the 7 kg dumbbell, and then they'll feel, okay, I can do this, but I could push it a bit more. And then when they get to the 9 kg dumbbell, they're like, oh, okay, I really have to push it to get through this set. That's what allows them to enter a flow state. Same with video games. A lot of children get into a flow state when they're playing video games because video games actually get more difficult as you go up on levels. So your skill set constantly evolves with the level that you're at. You have to slightly be stretched each time and grow a bit more, and it gives you an appropriate challenge, and you meet that appropriate challenge and stretch your skill set, and it feels really good when you're winning at the game. So a lot of video games are designed to get you into a flow state, but you can do this with your work. You can design your work so that you have a clear goal, so that you have an appropriate challenge, and so that you can see direct feedback on your progress. That is how you're going to get into a flow state, and that's how you're going to unlock this capacity to be able to do a lot of work in less time while not burning out, while actually you're absorbed by the activity. So here's some examples of how you could do that. Let's say you have a lot of emails to answer. That's a part of your work. Set a 30-minute timer and see how many of those emails you can open up in those 30 minutes. You've just set a challenge for yourself. You're trying to get through as many emails as you can in 30 minutes, and now it's a game, and you can score points based on the emails that you get through. If your team at work is in distress, let's say you're a leader in an organization and the team is in distress, turn it into a game where you meet with each of them one at a time for 15 minutes, and you say to yourself, my challenge is to unlock just one insight in each of these people. In one specific way, I'm going to give them something that they can take away, and that's going to help them. That's a very helpful thing to do, because now you've set a challenge, you've set a time limit, and you can engage with that challenge and allow yourself to get into a flow state where you have those back-to-back meetings and you absorb yourself into each of those encounters. Here's another example. Let's say you have to do some admin. Personally, I hate admin. So let's say you're like me and you don't like admin and it's usually not very enjoyable. How you can get into a flow state with admin is you say, okay, this repetitive task that I have to keep doing, can I do the same task 10% quicker without losing any of the quality? So for example, if I took 10 minutes to do the first one, can I do the next one in 9 minutes without reducing the quality? Now you've set up a challenge. Now you've set up a clear goal with clear feedback as to how well you're doing. If you do these three things, if you first align your motivation with intrinsically what motivates you, if you, number two, architect your environment for a smoother workflow, and number three, if you act through flow rather than through force, you'll already be well on your way to getting a lot more done without that heavy burnout, stress, tension, and urgency. If that interests you, if this kind of way of working, of not sacrificing your well-being for success, but using it as the foundation for your success, if that idea interests you, make sure to check out my online membership. I've got the link in bio. There's an amazing online course that allows you to personalize these psychological processes to you that will help you both unlock high performance and also help you feel happier on the way there. Link in bio. Check it out. I'll see you there.